Hello, I'm Nicole Montford, and I got chosen to talk about the carbon cycle for this week's project. So, what is the carbon cycle? The carbon cycle is nature's way of reusing carbon atoms, which transfer from the atmosphere into organisms in the earth and then back into the atmosphere very repeatedly. Carbon is found in the atmosphere in two places: methane and carbon dioxide. And then for the diagram I just chose something super simple, nothing too complicated. I feel like it describes it quite nicely. Talks about like the plants, to the animals, to the air. Talks about the carbon dioxide in between. It's really simple. I also just feel like the carbon cycle is something that we're all kind of familiar with, and when we talk about it, we're like, oh yeah, like I totally know what that is because I feel like we were all brought up that way, learning this one at least. So, a few key components in the carbon cycle is all the Earth's cycle play a role in this cycle. So, to get a little more descriptive, a little more detailed about this, the terrestrial biosphere, which is the Earth's land, have several paths for carbon. First, there is an exchange between plants and animals. Plants absorb carbon for photosynthesis, and the animals release carbon during cellular respiration. Um, Also, heterotrophs eat plants that contain carbon. And then animals also release carbon as methane, as we are all well familiar with. Carbon is also stored in the Earth's interior. Carbon in the lithosphere includes fossil fuels. And then also a fun fact I learned was volcanoes can release some of the carbon stored in the lithosphere. And then carbon can be absorbed by autotrophs like plants and plankton to be used for photosynthesis. Transferred. So carbon moves from plant to animals, as we've kind of talked about previously, through food chains. The carbon that is in plants move to the animals that eat them. Animals that eat other animals get the carbon from their food too. Carbon moves from plant to animals to soils. I feel like this kind of goes back to my diagram. Everything kind of goes back to it because I feel like the diagram explained it very nicely. So, how does the ocean play a role into the carbon cycle? So, the ocean absorbs much of the carbon dioxide that is released from burning fossil fuels. This exchange carbon dioxide is lowering the ocean's pH. The ocean is the greatest exchange of cycled carbon and stores a large amount of carbon the ocean absorbs in the form of carbon dioxide. The ocean also has a large amount of plankton that absorbs carbon dioxide from photosynthesis, as we've kind of touched based on previously. And then I just chose this diagram kind of to explain it a little bit better, to kind of demonstrate it possibly in some ways I haven't. So if you look in the photo, you can kind of see about the burning fossil fuels, the burning of just fuel in general. And then it also talks a little bit about the CO2 in the ocean. And then it also like shows a little bit about the animals and how they release the carbon dioxide. So lastly, how do humans play a role in the carbon cycle? Humans have like the most tremendous impact than anything when it comes to the carbon cycle. Burning fossil fuels, changing land use, and using limestone to make concrete all transfer significantly quantities of carbon into the atmosphere. And then another thing that is super important when it comes to the carbon cycle is that deforestation, like that humans do, increase the amount of carbon in the atmosphere. I think that's a real big fact that is very known because it's still an issue till today. And that is my presentation on the carbon cycle. I hope you guys all enjoyed. I hope you all learned something, and maybe some of this stuff was familiar, but maybe it wasn't. And I just hope that it was good. All right, bye.